One of Orochimaru's main goals throughout most of the Naruto series was to acquire a perfect vessel, a body that he could inhabit that would never decay and he could essentially keep forever and become immortal. The bodies Orochimaru used lasted about 3 years and then he had to change because the bodies began to reject him. However, if Orochimaru found somebody powerful enough with a powerful Keigenkai and a strong physical body, he would be able to keep them forever, which would just make things easier for him. He wouldn't have to go through the ritual of changing bodies every 3 years, and he would also be much more powerful because we are assuming a perfect vessel would be extremely powerful and grant him those powers. Orochimaru's initial idea was to use Itachi's body as his perfect vessel, but that backfired horribly when he tried to take Itachi. The Uchiha humiliated Orochimaru, who was one-shotted by a genjutsu, and so he had to move on. His second option was Kimimaro with a powerful bone Keigenkai of the Kaguya clan. However, Kimimaro fell ill to this mysterious, powerful disease that obviously made him not suitable for being Orochimaru's perfect vessel. And so, because Itachi was too strong and Kimimaro was too sick, Orochimaru had to choose a different vessel, and he chose Itachi's little brother, Sasuke. Now, Orochimaru has many more goals than simply to become immortal. He wants to learn every single jutsu there is, he wants to see things unfolding, but for him to achieve those things, acquiring a perfect body is going to be one of his top priorities. So it would make sense for Orochimaru to allocate a lot of resources, time, and effort into trying to bring Sasuke to his cause. Like, yes, Orochimaru could just try and use the ritual on Sasuke without Sasuke wanting to do so, which is possible, but it would be much better for Orochimaru if Sasuke came willingly. Orochimaru could train him, make Sasuke even stronger, and then use the ritual on a much more powerful Sasuke. That would make Orochimaru himself, when he gets Sasuke's body, much stronger. And that's why Orochimaru had to use a lot of subterfuge and manipulate Sasuke in a way so that Sasuke would go to Orochimaru willingly, craving power, trying to become stronger because he needs to avenge his clan killing Itachi, which is exactly what Orochimaru uses to bring Sasuke to his side. However, it wasn't easy. First, Orochimaru had to infiltrate the Forest of Death and plant the curse mark on Sasuke so he would become more powerful using those abilities, planting the seed on Sasuke's mind. Yes, Sasuke, I could give you a lot more power than these guys in the Leaf Village. But then he had to actually bring Sasuke physically to him in an opportune moment. And that's when we go to the Sasuke Retrieval Arc. The best arc in the series, the arc where Sasuke bails and the Genins have to go after him. It's gruesome, there are several interesting fights, but one thing that people kind of overlook is that Orochimaru sent 4 children to retrieve Sasuke, to retrieve his most valuable quote-unquote possession. He entrusts his future on these 4 children that were going to the Leaf Village, bring Sasuke to Orochimaru's hideout. Like, yes, Orochimaru can use other bodies, he can maybe even find a perfect body somewhere else, but having the Uchiha Keigenkai with the Sharingan and Sasuke as a perfect vessel is going to just make Orochimaru so much more powerful. So why would Orochimaru risk so much sending the Sound 4, which, if you don't know, all those 4 were 14 years old when they retrieved Sasuke from the Leaf Village and brought Sasuke back to Orochimaru's hideout. I mean, technically, they didn't finish the mission because they all died at 14 years old. People don't realize this very often, but yeah, the Sound 4 members all died in the Sasuke Retrieval Arc, and they were killed by other children. The good guys, you know, some guys we wouldn't expect to kill people, especially when they are young like that, but that's what happens. But from Orochimaru's perspective, sending those 4 at a very young age to infiltrate the Leaf Village and retrieve Sasuke in a place teeming with ninjas that would try to kill you on sight is just risky, isn't it? So why did Orochimaru do that? And was the Sound 4 even qualified for the mission, or was the mission always a suicide mission to begin with? When we go to the Pain Arc, we see that in order to invade the Leaf Village, you have to bypass the sensory barrier that is going to warn the Leaf Village ninjas that an invader entered the village. Some chakra that you don't know what it is. Yes, you can bypass that barrier with teleportation, for example, but for Pain's case, he was noticed. He does mention to Konan that Itachi and Kisame managed to enter the village without being noticed back in Naruto Part 1, which we see happening after the Chunin exams, but then he also says that because Itachi used to be a Namba member of the Leaf Village, he would know the code, quote-unquote, for the barrier and be able to enter without being noticed. The Sound 4, when entering the village, would be faced by this very same problem. However, I guess we can use the same explanation and say that, yeah, Orochimaru used to be a pretty powerful ninja of the Leaf Village. He would know how to crack the code of the barrier and give code to the Sound Force so they could enter the Leaf Village without being noticed in the first place. After all, they stayed in the Leaf Village itself, observing Sasuke and trying to find a good way to approach him for over a day. And yeah, if you're gonna say that the barrier around the village, the sensory barrier, was a retcon and that Kishimoto came up with that during the Pain arc, you're gonna be correct, but we're trying to do this retroactively and explain how the Sound Force entered the village anyways. So we're assuming Orochimaru gave them the code, they entered the village without a problem, but like, what if a powerful ninja saw the Sound Force? They were pretty damn scared when they saw Kakashi near Sasuke. They, oh, okay, if this guy sees us, we're done. And yeah, it's true, Kakashi could solo all four of them at the same time. But we also have to take into account that Kakashi is one of the strongest ninjas in the Leaf Village. We don't get Orochimaru's exact directives for the mission here, but I just have to assume that if somebody spots the Sound Force in the Leaf Village, they have to quickly eliminate that person. So how strong is the Sound Force exactly? Orochimaru was confident in them to bring them as his bodyguards during the Konoha Crush plan. They were able to create the four-pronged barrier that kept Hiruzen and Orochimaru locked in combat and nobody could interfere. And they were also strong enough to extract Orochimaru while an Anbu team was chasing them after the battle against Hiruzen. Kidomaru used his web jutsu and completely stalled the Anbu. So by that, Orochimaru trusting them so much, and them being able to stop an Anbu squadron, yeah, it wasn't a prolonged fight against the Anbu, but still, it makes them obviously way beyond Genin or even Chunin level, I would say. The best benchmark for the Sound Force fighting as a unit comes when they fight against Raido and Genma, who are two special Jonins, a rank beyond Jonin. However, I would say that out of all the special Jonins, those two are probably the strongest ones when it comes to combat, especially Genma. I've made videos about both Genma and Raido, but Genma stalemated Baki for like an hour during the Chunin exam's invasion, and Baki is a full-fledged Jonin. If Genma wasn't strong enough to be Jonin level, at least when it comes to combat, he would have lost to Baki, like Hayate did in 2 seconds, for example. He was also a special Jonin. So I guess you can call Genma Jonin level, at least when it comes to fighting with a degree of comfort. The 4 members of the Sound Force managed to beat Raido and Genma pretty soundly. Yes, they were a bit tired after the fight, but Genma and Raido were very much hurt, and the Sound Force wasn't really hurt at all. Now, they say that Raido and Genma are pretty damn out of chakra because they just finished a mission. However, it's likely the Sound Force just went Curse Mark 2 out of the gate because they know they're two powerful guys, and just like the directive of Orochimaru said, well, at least the one I think Orochimaru gave to them, they had to go full force to eliminate anybody that saw them so they could retrieve Sasuke as fast as possible. So by what we saw with the Sound Force fighting against Genma and Raido, it's very clear that they would be able to deal with one Jonin level threat if they encounter them. I mean, I wouldn't say the 4 of them would beat Kakashi or Guy in a 4v1. However, somebody like Asuma or Kurenai, I think it's very possible. Then again, most ninjas are not Jonins. It's gonna be much easier for them to deal with Chunins or even Genins, and the Leaf Village was very much short-staffed when the Sound Force infiltrated it. So that also gives them an advantage, and Orochimaru would know that the Leaf Village would try to do as many missions as possible because they want to make up for the fiasco that was the Chunin exams and the invasion. Tsunade herself says that they're doing way more missions than usual because of the political situation they're in. They have to show that the Leaf Village is still powerful even though it was attacked and heavily damaged. And that's probably one of the reasons why the Sound Force could move so freely around the Leaf Village. Then again, if 5 or 6 mildly powerful Chunins encountered them in the village, for example, I don't see much they could do because the Sound Force members all lose to other kids. Jirobo loses a 1v1 against Choji. Choji just kills them with a brutal punch. Choji, who is a Genin. Kidomaru loses a 1v1 against Neji. He also dies in that fight. Neji, who's also a Genin. Sakon, who is said to be the strongest member of the Sound Force according to Kabuto, beats Kiba, but he is destroyed by Kankuro. We don't know if Kankuro was already a Chunin at that point. Maybe he was, maybe not. Yeah, Kankuro's strong, but like, it's not as if there aren't many ninjas in the Leaf Village that are as powerful as Kankuro in the Sasuke Retrieval Arc. And Tayuya beats Shikamaru as well, even though it was a difficult fight, Shikamaru being a Chunin, and then she is stomped by Temari, pretty much one-shotted. So if this group of 6 kids manages to defeat the Sound Force in 1v1 or 2v1 battles, I have to say that many ninjas in the Leaf Village would be able to defeat them as well. It's not as if the Sound Force can go pain mode and attack the Leaf Village indiscriminately. No, they have to be very careful about it. And let's be real here, there's a very good chance this plan failed. Imagine if for whatever reason Hyuga decided to activate his Byakugan in the middle of the Leaf Village. They could spot them very easily. It is a very risky risky plan, and a plan Orochimaru was putting all his faith on. After all, Sasuke was his biggest prize, and those 4 kids had to bring him back. So why would he do that? Why wouldn't he send somebody stronger than the Sound 4, which, as I said, are not weak, but to infiltrate the Leaf Village? I mean, they wouldn't exactly be my first option. Well, the obvious out-of-universe explanation is that the enemies of the Sasuke Retrieval Arc had to be in a level of strength comparable to the characters going to retrieve Sasuke. Characters who were all Genins, or in Shikamaru's case, a Chunin, but they obviously weren't at the top tier of shinobis in the verse, or even at Jonin level, for example. The only characters out of the rookies, including the Sand siblings, that reached Jonin level in the Sasuke Retrieval Arc are going to be Naruto and Sasuke at the end of their fight in the Valley of the End, and also Gaara. The Gaara fights against Kimimaro, and I'm gonna get to Kimimaro later. So to make the fights interesting and evenly matched, and so that the characters don't get stomped or anything, the enemies our main characters face had to be of an equivalent level of strength. Yes, a few of them were stronger individually than other members of the retrieval team, like Sakon beat Kiba and Tayuya beat Shikamaru, and you can also say they were also a bit tired from the fight against Raito and Genna. However, they were similarly matched, and that was important for the overall fluidity of the arc. I mean, that's the reason why no Jonins go on the arc. Yeah, the in-universe reason is because the Leaf Village is very much short-staffed, but out of universe, it's obviously so that the kids can go through this major event and big character arc for them. But in-universe, why would Orochimaru do that? Well, the first thing is that Orochimaru was pretty damn desperate. Hiruzen's Reaper Death Seal was degrading his body in a much faster rate than it would have been otherwise. Kabuto even mentions that Hiruzen's jutsu was much more powerful than they anticipated, and remember that scene when Orochimaru is in the shower and his arms are bleeding and everything and he's screaming in pain. After Hiruzen sealed Orochimaru's arms, his first action was trying to heal the arms. That's why he sought Tsunade in the Search for Tsunade arc. That failed. Tsunade didn't heal his arms, and she became the Hokage. And now his time is very much running short, so he needs to act quickly. He needs to get Sasuke fast, so he has to send a team to the Leaf Village, retrieve him immediately. The thing is, Orochimaru actually planned to take Sasuke immediately after he got to the hideout. However, because the Sound 4 weren't as fast as Orochimaru anticipated or wanted them to be, he had to take somebody else's body, that guy with green hair that Kabuto selected after that battle royale he made him take part on. So time was of the essence, and Orochimaru had to be quick forming a team to go after Sasuke. Sending the Sound 4, which is a team with a lot of synergy since they fight together all the time, sounds like a good idea. However, couldn't Orochimaru have sent someone stronger? Someone that's actually Jonin level individually? Or perhaps a squadron of ninjas that are Jonin level individually? Combined, they become much more powerful than just the Sound 4. Well, that's when Kimimaro comes in. He who was supposed to be Orochimaru's prime vessel fell ill and couldn't do much anymore. Orochimaru had a lot of trust in Kimimaro powers. He was certain that if Kimimaro had helped Orochimaru fighting against Hiruzen, the fight against Hiruzen would have been much easier and Orochimaru's arms wouldn't have been sealed, which is a big deal. But because Kimimaro got so sick, he couldn't even help during the Konoha Crush invasion, and he couldn't help when the Sound 4 retrieved Sasuke. He only managed to help the Sound 4 when Kabuto convinced him and manipulated Kimimaro into helping Orochimaru out. Even though he couldn't move, he just quote-unquote moved through sheer will. And let's be real here, if it wasn't for Kimimaro, the Sound 4 would have actually failed the mission. Shikamaru and Naruto would have retrieved Sasuke, and obviously Kimimaro doesn't let that happen because he's so much more powerful than the Sound 4 members. He's clearly at the Jonin level by himself, and if he had been healthier, he would have led the mission to retrieve Sasuke. Well, if he had been completely healthy, then Orochimaru would have just used him as a vessel, but had he been on a better condition, then he could have led the Sound 4, making them the Sound 5. Okay, Kimimaro is too sick, but why not send somebody else that's also strong like Kimimaro? Well, that's the problem. Orochimaru didn't really have anybody else like that. Most of the Sound ninjas, the ninjas that worked for Orochimaru, like those guys who attacked the Leaf Village and were fighting against Kakashi and Guy, or even the guys that Sasuke fights in Naruto Shippuden in those sparring sessions, like literally an army of ninjas versus Sasuke. Sasuke destroys them without sweating. They're all not exactly powerful. Sasuke is destroying 1,000 of them at the same time and with just taijutsu alone without sweating. Kakashi and Guy deal with them very easily, fighting against 50 of them at the same time and beating them all. Asuma beats an entire battalion of Sound ninjas ninjas when he saved Shikamaru from them in the Konoha Crush arc as well. So it's clear that the average sound ninja is not as strong as a sound 4 member. All 4 of them had much more specialized and powerful abilities, especially when they put them together. And Orochimaru wouldn't send a large number of troops because this is an infiltration mission. The more people you have on your team, the easier it is for your team to get spotted. The other powerful ninja Orochimaru had access to was obviously Kabuto, who is evidently at the Jonin level, much stronger than any Sound 4 member. I have no doubt Kabuto would do what Orochimaru says if Orochimaru commanded him to do so. However, Kabuto had to stay near Orochimaru because Orochimaru's body was decaying, and he was Orochimaru's best medic ninja and one of the best medic ninjas in the world, so he had to take care of Orochimaru, make sure he wouldn't die. And that was very good because at the end of the day, Kabuto was the one who convinced Orochimaru to take that green-haired guy's body. Otherwise, Orochimaru was just gonna be stubborn and die, I suppose. So Kabuto prepares everything for Orochimaru to use the ritual on the green-haired guy, and it works out. Orochimaru doesn't die. So Kabuto, even though he was the strongest ninja Orochimaru had access to at that point, that wasn't sick like Kimimaro, he couldn't really go. Which leaves us with a Sound 4. The 4 strongest ninjas Orochimaru had access to at that point in the story, a very time-sensitive point for Orochimaru, and he just had to send the strongest ones he had in a small cell team that could infiltrate the village and not a small army, which would be devastated by the village defenses. I mean, can you imagine if Orochimaru sent like, what, 500 or maybe 1,000 of those fodder sound ninjas? They wouldn't be able to be stealthy because it's just too many of them, and yes, maybe they could do some damage and maybe kidnap Sasuke or even try to convince him to come with them, but it's much less likely that Sasuke would believe them and, yo, yes, come with us, Orochimaru's gonna make you powerful than if the Sound 4 did so. Remember, Sasuke had to be convinced to go willingly, and the Sound 4 were perfect for doing that. They had the curse mark. They could show that Orochimaru could bestow powerful abilities to them. Sasuke kinda 1v4'd the Sound 4 in base, but then when they used the curse mark stage 1, they destroyed Sasuke, and that's how they convinced him, okay, yeah, I have to go with them. Orochimaru's gonna make me stronger, especially now that I saw Naruto using a jutsu much more powerful than my Chidori. And if Orochimaru sent a small army of fodder to do that, they simply wouldn't be able to accomplish that mission. He had to send the Sound 4. They were all Orochimaru had at that point, and they were also pretty damn good for the job. Click on the video on your screen right now for more cool Naruto content. Don't forget to please like, subscribe, and definitely ring notifications. Those 3 things really help supporting the channel out, and it takes 3 seconds for you to do all of them. So please do. And thank you so much for watching.